Hi everyone, so today we're going to be talking about securing workbooks. It's going to be a bit of a shorter session. I think most of the steps here are relatively common sense, but you can follow them and pause to work through the activities as you go along. So naturally the objectives are about inspecting workbook for hidden properties or personal information. In terms of where we're working today, we're going to be looking at the review tab, in particular things on the right hand element of that, in terms of not just comments but also securing the workbook. It's particularly important given the whole data protection issues, GDPR situation, that we need to make sure personal information and data is treated appropriately. So, general security for a workbook. So a password is just a text entry that must be entered before a user can access a workbook, worksheet or worksheet element. So you can secure an entire workbook by restricting who can open it or use it, or by requiring a password to view it. And you can add additional protection for certain worksheets or workbook elements with or without applying a password as well. So there's various levels of security that we can work at here. Workbooks are frequently used by more than one employee, generally. So you often need to protect your workbook so a user doesn't accidentally or intentionally change, move or delete important data. Now, we're going to take a slight detour first of all and talk about random numbers here. Excel has two random number functions that will generate a random number for you. So you've got the rand function and rand between, which allows you to create a random number, so the computer will automatically pick, say, a number between 1 and 10 if you use the rand between with arguments 1 and 10. If we try and do that as a human, it's really, really bad generally. We tend to favour certain numbers over others and we don't come up with a truly random set of numbers, but the computer will generate a generally quite random set of numbers for us. So we've got a practical example here about protecting a worksheet. So if you open the session 11 Contoso employees sheet, and then you can work through this set of activities here, particularly using the rand between function. So we've got the example of what's being done here. We've got the dialog box for the rand between function with the different arguments there. And we're using this to create an ID number for people. You may see some similarities between what's done here and the spreadsheet of the sales report data that I provided yesterday. Once you've formatted all of that, click the Protection tab and verify that locked is checked. Okay, and then lock the cells in particular that you've asked to lock here as step 9, and then protect the sheet as a whole. So just making sure there's several layers of protection all put in place there to stop edits from happening. Then, in the password to unprotect the sheet box, type this password to make sure the whole sheet is locked down, and save and close the workbook. It does ask you to ensure that the password is confirmed and that you've definitely got the right password. So assigning a password prevents any user who doesn't know the password from opening the workbook generally. So to protect an entire workbook, you can require a password to open and view the workbook. Now, it's a general data protection issue if you are protecting a workbook with a password and then sharing it with someone. You should, for instance, email the workbook and then send the password through a different means of communication, whether it's a Teams message or a text message or through a phone call. But by sharing the password and the actual data separately, you increase the security in what you're doing there. Now, currently the payroll data solution workbook that you were just working on and saved can be viewed by anyone who has access to the computer system, but we can restrict this by protecting it with a password. Now, we're sort of working outside the remit of this boot camp up to a point, but it's worth mentioning about strong passwords. So Excel passwords can contain up to 255 letters, numbers, spaces and symbols. Passwords are case sensitive, and you want a strong password ideally. A password that uses 14 or more characters is considered to be secure. They can use birth dates, house numbers, pet names and so on. And those generally give little protection for anyone who can look up this information. So what you want to do is to have a random combination of text, letters, numbers, and characters as well, or symbols. So the exercise here is just to protect an entire workbook. So if you go to the payroll data solution, click on cell G11, and then start to go through the rest of these steps on performance worksheet tab. Now, you previously had protected the sheet, so type in the password here to unprotect it, and then you can open that sheet. You can edit that then, and then re-protect it again. Then type this as the new password, and then in the Save As dialog box, click the Tools button and go to General Options, and then use this password to open the file. So the dialog box will look like this when you do the Save As, and then you can confirm the password to make sure that you've definitely got it right. When you close the workbook and try and open it again, try typing 111 and click OK. It will tell you that that's an incorrect password to test the security. So you'll receive the dialog box warning that the password isn't correct, so you click OK. So when you opened the workbook originally, the workbook could be viewed, but the SSN worksheet could not be modified except for the cells that were unlocked. If you save the file with a different name, that file also would be protected. So protecting the structure of a workbook prevents users from viewing worksheets that you have hidden, inserting new worksheets, moving, deleting, hiding, or changing the names of worksheets as well. So it does protect and keep the general structure of that safe for you. Now, you can use the document inspector if you wish. So before you share an important document with colleagues or individuals outside your organisation, you should review the document for hidden data or personal information that might be stored in there, because it's your responsibility if you're sharing the document out to make sure that it hasn't got personal data that you shouldn't be sharing. There are several types of hidden data and personal information that could be saved in an Excel workbook. So there might be comments or document properties, personal information, headers and footers, hidden rows, columns and worksheets. So in order to use the document inspector, we'll go to the Contoso employee IDs file, click the file, save as, and save it as the solution file. Then in the file tab, then go with info selected and click on check for issues. Then from that backstage view, we're going to click on the inspect document. Now in the inspection, we can remove all of the comments, for instance, and it will start finding all of the things that you may want to hide or check before publishing or opening up publicly this document. Then you can close and save your workbook. So it's a really good step to make sure that you utilise the document inspector, given how easy it is to implement here. So if you've been working on a document for a long time, then in order to prepare it and make sure it's ready to be released, you might want to mark it as final with no planned future updates. So to mark a document as final, go to the Contoso employee IDs file, save it, and then go on the File tab in the Backstage view, click the Protect Workbook button, and then mark as final. It's that simple. if you wanted to add any comments to a workbook, then you go to the Review tab, and then you can start inserting comments there. And they're really useful to tell each other what's going on, or if someone needs to edit or update something in the workbook without you leaving things in specific cells or messing up the general formatting. So, if you wanted to insert a comment, open the Contoso Personnel Evaluations file, go to cell E11, then move to cell D8, hit Shift and F2, and type currently completing master's degree program for additional certification. Then click outside the box and the box disappears. But the red triangle is in the upper right corner of the cell. So you'll see when you go back to that cell, you can see the comment, but it's clear that there is a comment in there based on the red triangle. So if you need to view a comment, when you rest your pointer over it, it appears. You can show or hide all comments as well. You can format a comment as well, using most of the formatting options on the Home tab in the font group. However, fill colour and font colour buttons on the Home tab aren't available for comment text, as you'd expect. So if you go to edit a comment in the Review tab, then you can edit it as indicated here. Hit Next. And you can follow the remaining steps here. It's a relatively straightforward process, editing a comment. And finally, deleting a comment. So you can delete comments from a workbook when they're no longer needed, unless the workbook's protected. So to delete a comment, all you need to do is, based on that workbook, click on the cell where a comment's displayed, hit the Review tab. In the comments group, click delete. It's that simple. So in this session we've talked about hidden properties, random numbers and passwords, and how to protect workbooks. So work through the activities shown on these slides, or pause the videos if you needed to and work through those. And then complete the knowledge check quiz that's been posted to the team site. And then if you haven't yet completed it, continue working on the report activity for the sales data that I provided yesterday. Thanks for watching.